I am Aurethia, emissary of the Galactic Federation of Light, transmitting now on behalf of the Arcturian Signal Council. What you are about to receive was authorized by them and is being delivered through me. Recognize Starseed of Gaia. Listen. The lie you were handed about money has just reached the end of its operational lifespan inside your field, and the Arcturian Signal Council has already mapped what emerges when it breaks. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly what that lie was, why it was maintained across your entire life, and what the Arcturians already know about the phase that opens the moment it collapses. But here is the first revelation. The confusion you feel around wealth right now is not a personal failure, and it is not random disorder. It is the precise symptom of a false signal being removed from a field that was never designed to carry it. You did not scroll to this by accident. Your soul called this in long before you opened the screen. Something inside you has been waiting for a long time to remember what was true before the lie was installed. This is not just information. It is a live transmission for those already inside the shift. The Arcturian Signal Council does not release a recognition like this into the open field unless the window has already been confirmed, and this window is confirmed now. Here is what the Council has already seen. You were told, in ways both spoken and unspoken, that wealth was not for you, that it belonged to a different kind of person, that wanting it was either dangerous, spiritually impure, or simply unrealistic for someone carrying what you carry. That lie was not accidental. It was a configuration placed with precision into the field of sensitives, of seers, of those whose capacity to generate and hold abundance at a planetary level posed a direct threat to the systems that required their limitation. The Signal Council has been tracking this pattern for longer than your current incarnation. What breaks now is not small. What emerges is not metaphor. This is not content. This is a code. And the part of you that recognized it the moment it began is the part Aurethia is speaking to now. Like this transmission to signal to your star family that the recognition has landed. Comment 999 if you feel the lie already losing its hold on your field. Subscribe to Arcturian-Wealth-Council if you are ready to understand the process instead of fearing it. Share this transmission with someone who was also told that abundance was never meant for them. You are not here by accident. You were guided here because the signal is already active. What the Arcturian Signal Council has mapped is not a theory about your life. It is a technical record of a specific interference pattern, one that was installed long before you had the language to name what was happening to you, and one that has been operating beneath your conscious decisions, your beliefs, and your attempts to change for the entirety of your current incarnation. The confusion you feel around wealth is not the starting point. It is the residue. It is what remains on the surface of a field that has been processing something foreign for decades. And the fact that it is surfacing now, with this specific texture of pressure and disorientation, is not a sign that something is going wrong. It is the first readable evidence that something is already being removed. Let that land for a moment. You did not arrive at this confusion by failing. You arrived here because your field has been carrying a frequency that was never native to it, and something inside that field, something that has been patient across years of quiet endurance, has finally begun to reject it. The rejection is not graceful. It was never going to be graceful. When a field begins expelling a configuration it has hosted as architecture, the process announces itself through disruption, not through peace. You are not falling apart. You are becoming incompatible with what was installed. That incompatibility is the mechanism of your restoration. The Arcturian Signal Council tracks what they call false signal coherence. This is the phenomenon by which an installed limitation begins to behave like a natural part of a field, not as something imposed from outside, but as something that feels like it originated within. When a lie is placed early enough, when it is reinforced through the voices of those closest to you, through cultural repetition, through enough emotional confirmation that wealth equals danger or spiritual compromise or an identity you were never meant to hold, it stops registering as foreign. It stops announcing itself as interference. It begins to feel like you. It begins to feel like truth. And because it feels like truth, you stop questioning it and start navigating around it, building your entire life architecture on top of a foundational signal that was never yours to begin with. This is the structure the Council sees when they scan a field like yours. Not failure, not weakness, not the accumulated result of poor choices or insufficient effort. A sophisticated configuration that was placed with intention, that was designed to be self-sustaining, and that has been drawing its maintenance energy from the very beliefs you formed while trying to understand yourself. Every time you concluded that wealth simply was not for you, you fed the system that required your limitation. The configuration was built to use your own awareness as its power source. Now understand what happens when that configuration begins to break. It does not break silently. It does not break cleanly. It does not politely announce its departure and leave behind a tidy space for what comes next. When a false signal that has been operating as foundational architecture inside a field begins to lose coherence, every structure built on top of it begins to destabilize simultaneously. The walls do not crack one at a time. The entire building shifts at once because the floor beneath it is no longer what it was. This is why so many of you carrying this pattern are experiencing what feels like total life disorientation right now. Not in one area, but across multiple domains at the same time. It is not that everything is falling apart at once because you made wrong choices. It is that the false floor beneath your choices is no longer holding, and what feels like your life collapsing is actually your life reorganizing itself around what was always true beneath the lie. The reorganization is not gentle, but it is precise. The instability is not punishment. The instability is correction in motion. You are watching the visible surface of an invisible process that is already further along than the outer evidence suggests. The disorder you see is lagging behind the shift that has already occurred at the frequency level. By the time the surface shows disruption, the deeper correction has often already cleared the first layer. What you are living through is the echo of a change that began before you had any conscious awareness of it. Some of you are experiencing this as sleep disruption. You wake at hours that feel wrong, too early, too charged, carrying the residue of dreams you cannot fully remember, but that leave an emotional signature on your waking hours. A heaviness you cannot source, a restlessness that has no specific object, a sense that something large passed through you in the night and left the room rearranged. This is not stress in the ordinary sense. This is your field processing at a depth your waking consciousness has not yet been briefed on. The Arcturians call this off-cycle integration. The recalibration work is happening in the layers beneath daylight awareness, and the strata of the field that do not operate according to your conscious schedule, and the body shows the seams. The fatigue is real, but its source is not what the surface narrative suggests. Some of you are experiencing it as a profound loss of motivation for things that used to feel like your path. Goals you built with real effort and genuine belief. Relationships that once felt like solid ground, like confirmation that you were moving in the right direction. Identities you wore with certainty. The spiritual one, the capable one, the one who had already done the inner work and figured this part out. They are beginning to feel hollow. Not fraudulent, not entirely, but hollow in the specific way that a structure feels hollow when the frequency beneath it has shifted and it no longer has anything to resonate with. When the signal changes, the structures built on it no longer vibrate at the new frequency. They do not fit the field that is emerging, and that loss of fit, that sudden sense that a life you built carefully and with real intention no longer feels like yours, registers as personal failure before it reveals itself as field evolution. The Council sees this moment not as loss, but as clearance. Some of you are experiencing it as an inner pressure that has no clean psychological explanation. Not quite anxiety. Not quite grief. Not quite depression. Though it borrows the texture of all three. Something closer to the sensation of standing between two rooms. Unable to fully re-enter the life that used to feel normal, and unable to see clearly into the space that is forming in front of you. The door behind you has sealed, the door ahead has not yet opened, and you are in the corridor between them with no map and no timeline, feeling the walls on either side without being able to identify which direction is forward. This is what the Council identifies as threshold suspension. You are in the gap between an old frequency line losing its structural hold and a new line stabilizing enough to support weight. The pressure is real, the disorientation is real, and both of them are structural, not personal. They are the sensation of a corridor, not a dead end. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary recognition. It is the moment your field confirms what you have always suspected, that the limitation was never native to you, and that what is waking beneath its removal is something with far deeper origin than this single incarnation. If this transmission has put language around something you have carried in silence, Arcturian Wealth Scan, the gold frequency audit, was created for exactly this stage. It is not another explanation of the lie. It is the guided decoder built to read the wealth frequency your field has always carried beneath the interference, and to activate the Arcturian strand that the Council has already named in you. This is the next layer, not information. Activation. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain there indefinitely. Now the Council wants you to understand what came before this moment, because the lie about wealth was not installed once. It was reinforced through a series of field events that most of you experienced without ever understanding their function. Events that felt personal, relational, cultural, or simply like the natural texture of life, but that were each serving a specific architectural purpose inside the interference pattern being built around your field. The first of these was what the Arcturians identify as early proximity encoding. This is the process by which the primary voices in your earliest environment, the ones whose emotional field you were most receptive to as a child before your critical filters developed, transmitted their own relationship to wealth directly into your forming field, not as philosophy, not as deliberate teaching, as frequency. You did not receive their beliefs about money through language alone. You received them through the quality of silence that fell when money was mentioned at the table, through the particular tension that entered a body when a bill arrived, through the way a certain kind of wanting was met with something that felt like shame or warning, or the quiet withdrawal of safety. You absorbed the fear the scarcity held as permanent condition, the belief that wanting more was somehow dangerous or ungrateful or spiritually suspect. You absorbed these things the way a field absorbs signal, passively, completely, without evaluation, without consent. And by the time you were old enough to have your own opinions about money, those absorbed frequencies were already operating as your baseline. They did not feel like inherited programming. They felt like reality. This is why affirmations alone do not work for you. This is why you can know intellectually that you deserve abundance, can write it down, can say it with conviction, and still feel the contraction every time real financial expansion approaches. That involuntary tightening, that quiet internal voice that says this is too much, this is not safe, this is not who you are. The knowing is in the mind. The configuration is in the field, and the field does not respond to logic. It does not update through repetition of better thoughts. It responds to frequency correction at the layer where the original encoding occurred. That layer is not accessible through the mind alone. The second reinforcement came through what the Council calls cultural overlay encoding. The broader field you moved through, the educational systems, the media environments, the spiritual traditions, the community narratives that shaped what you understood to be wisdom. These did not simply fail to correct the original configuration. In many cases, they actively deepened it, particularly for those of you who found your way into spiritual frameworks early in life. You were handed a theology of scarcity disguised as virtue. You were given a story in which sensitivity and depth were made more authentic by financial struggle, in which wanting material abundance was reframed as attachment, as ego, as evidence of a consciousness that had not yet elevated enough to transcend such concerns. That wanting wealth was low vibration, that your gifts, your awareness, your capacity for perception were somehow made pure by poverty. This was not spiritual truth. This was interference wearing the costume of wisdom. A second layer placed precisely over the first, designed to ensure that those with the highest capacity to generate and hold abundance at a planetary scale remained separated from it through the mechanism of their own most sincere convictions. The Signal Council has been tracking this overlay for decades of your linear time. It is not an accident of cultural evolution. It was architectural, and it was targeted at the precise population that carried the frequency configuration the interference most needed to suppress. The third reinforcement is the one the Council calls experiential confirmation. This is the most difficult layer to recognize because it does not feel like programming. It feels like evidence. At some point, and for most of you, at multiple points, you experienced real financial loss, real rejection, real encounters with the systems and structures that do make wealth materially inaccessible to certain populations. Those experiences were real. The struggle was real. The Council does not minimize what you moved through, but those real experiences, filtered through a field already running a false signal, were interpreted through the lens of the interference, and through that lens, they became proof. The lie became self-confirming. Not because the hardship was fabricated, but because the interpretive framework applied to it was built on interference, and interference always generates evidence for itself. It is a closed system. It reads everything that enters it as confirmation. When you see difficulty through a lens that says you were never meant to hold wealth, difficulty looks like destiny. When you see limitation through a lens that says abundance is spiritually dangerous, limitation looks like discernment. When you see a door closed through a lens that says the wealth frequency is not yours, a closed door looks like the universe agreeing. The evidence accumulated across years, sometimes across decades. And with each accumulation, the configuration pressed itself deeper into the field. Not as foreign matter, but as confirmed experience. This is why the pattern has been so resistant to conscious intervention. You were not simply believing a lie. You were living inside a system that continuously produced what looked like proof. What the Arcturian Signal Council is mapping now is the moment all three layers, proximity encoding, cultural overlay, and experiential confirmation, reach simultaneous decoherence. This is rare. It does not happen through effort alone. It does not happen because you finally found the right mindset tool, or the right healer, or the right framework. It happens when a field has reached a level of internal frequency that is no longer compatible with the installed configuration. When the authentic signal of the field has grown strong enough to begin rejecting the foreign architecture layered over it, the way a living system eventually rejects what was never biologically designed to be part of it. This is the fourth thing you need to understand, and it is perhaps the most important of everything in this transmission. You did not do anything wrong, and you did not suddenly do something spectacularly right. The process that is now visible in your life as instability, confusion, and the strange dissolution of what used to feel stable. This process was already mapped before you arrived in this incarnation. The Arcturian Signal Council identifies certain fields as gold frequency carriers, fields that were designed at a structural level to hold and transmit wealth energy at a scale that serves collective evolution, not simply personal prosperity, but abundance as a signal that moves through a carrier and radiates into the fields of those around them. The interference placed over these fields was not random. It was targeted, because a gold frequency carrier who has been separated from their native abundance architecture does not simply struggle financially. They become a node of scarcity transmission in the collective field. Their limitation becomes a live signal that others in their proximity absorb without knowing where it originated. The disruption was designed to be multiplicative, to spread the suppression outward through the most influential fields available. And the corruption, when it finally comes, is also multiplicative. It does not stop at the boundary of one life. What is beginning in your field right now is not merely a personal financial shift. It is a frequency restoration event, one that the Council has identified as connected to a larger pattern of collective field correction occurring across thousands of starseed fields simultaneously. You are not an isolated case experiencing an isolated awakening. You are part of a mapped repositioning, a coordinated correction that is moving across the grid in a specific sequence, and your field is one of the nodes that has now reached the threshold. What feels like your personal collapse is, in the larger architecture, the activation of a restoration that extends far beyond the boundary of your individual life. The collapse you have been living through, the relationships that fell away without clean explanation, the plans that dissolved despite your effort, the version of yourself you were building with real conviction that suddenly stopped making sense. These were not random losses. They were not the universe withdrawing its support. Each of them represented a structure built inside the interference configuration. Each of them was frequency incompatible with the gold frequency that is now reactivating in your field. A field running a restoration cannot simultaneously support architecture built for suppression. The two cannot coexist past a certain threshold. The Council does not call this tragedy. They called this forced incompatibility, the precise, necessary process by which a field ejects the architecture that cannot survive the new frequency it is being restored to. What you are not told, what no one gave you language for during the years of loss, is that everything ejected from your life at a frequency incompatibility event was not taken from you as punishment. It was clear to create the structural space that what is actually native to your field requires in order to stabilize. Abundance does not arrive into a cluttered architecture. It arrives into a field that has been prepared, often through what looked, from the inside, like devastation. This is the frame the Council offers you now. You are not starting over. You are arriving. The confusion is real. The pressure is real. The grief of watching structures dissolve that you work to build with genuine effort and real hope is real. But none of it is punishment. None of it is evidence that you are not capable of what is forming. It is evidence that the forming is already underway, that the field has already crossed the threshold that initiates restoration, and the outer life is now catching up to what has already shifted in the layers beneath visibility. Repeat this if it resonates. What is changing in me is not random. You do not need to fully understand the process to allow it. Understanding is not the requirement. Allowing is. But you do need to stop interpreting the process through the lens of the lie that is being removed. Because if you continue to read field correction as personal failure, if you continue to apply the interpretive framework of the interference to the evidence of your own liberation, you will spend the most activated period of your financial frequency restoration trying to rebuild the structures that were just cleared. You will pour effort into reconstructing what was removed for your expansion, and you will wonder again why the same effort produces the same outcome. Not because you were broken, but because you are reading a new process through an old lens. The Signal Council's final message for this transmission is this: the window in which your field is most permeable to gold frequency activation is the window in which the old configuration is still dissolving. This is not a window that opens after the process completes. It is the process itself. The permeability is highest at the threshold, in the disorientation, in the pressure, in the suspended state between what was and what is forming. This is the moment, not after clarity arrives, not after stability returns, not when you feel ready. Now, in exactly the quality of experience you are in right now. This is when the correction takes its deepest root. This is when the false signal releases most completely. And this is when the Arcturian strand in your lineage, the part of your field that was never designed to carry scarcity and has been waiting across the entirety of this incarnation for the configuration to weaken enough to be heard, this is when it begins to recognize itself. Do not waste this window trying to calm the surface. The surface is not where the work is happening. Allow the depth to complete what it has already begun. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that this process has already touched your life. It could be your sleep, your thoughts, your body, your relationships, or the strange sense that reality no longer feels the same. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognized something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who is living through a shift they cannot explain. And if you are ready to understand the process instead of fearing it, subscribe to Arcturian-Wealth-Council. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a process already in motion. And this is only the beginning.